All right. What's up, Ziza family? Welcome to another episode. We have Michael here from Hood Burger Project. It seems like a new project that you've kind of started working on here recently, and we'll definitely get into that. First, tradition here, we're going to ask you a couple random questions, okay?
Okay.
All right. Let's see what we get. If you had to describe your current life as a movie, which movie would you choose?
Contagion. That might be the most appropriate.
For this time period, especially.
Too on the nose.
Yeah, right? For this time period, for sure.
Requiem for a Dream. I don't know. It's kind of a weird nightmare at times.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Do you have any unusual fears?
I mean, I don't know if it's unusual, but like heights is definitely like my biggest fear.
Okay.
I would say. Like I like to be on the ground.
Yeah.
Large bodies of water too.
Birds gotta fly, fish gotta swim. I gotta stay on the floor.
Lizards gotta squirm. That's me.
All right, last one. What was the unspoken scandal in your town when growing up? Actually, that's a good question. Where did you grow up?
I grew up here in Phoenix.
Okay.
First half in Mesa, and then the second half in Glendale.
Okay.
Like
Any
childhood?
Any crazy childhood stories or things that were like unsolved mysteries from when you were growing up?
I don't know. Well, there was like this youth pastor of this church that was popular in my area, like got busted, like with a prostitution ring. That was like
that's crazy.
That was pretty scandalous.
Did you hear about the Maricopa County assessor? What happened with him? So the Maricopa County assessor got arrested like maybe 6-7 months ago, for a scandal where he was buying and selling babies.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like crazy stuff. And I my day job, I work in the real estate industry.
What does he do with the babies?
I didn't look into it that far because I thought it was so twisted. I was like, I don't want to know this. And the only reason I recognized it is because for my day job, I'm on the assessor's website quite often.
Okay.
And I recognized his face, and I saw it on Yahoo one morning when I woke up. I just saw his face in the photo. And I was like, what happened with this guy? And then it's like baby selling scandal or some crap like that.
Jesus. How do you get that deep? Maybe he was like trying to find rightful homes for these lost babies.
I feel like that's an adoption agency's job.
Maybe he was going rogue.
Maybe he thought he could do a better job than the adoption agencies.
Yeah.
Okay. So Hood Burger Project.
Yeah.
Where did this idea come from?
So it definitely started in the middle of the pandemic. I've been in the restaurant industry for a lot of years, and myself, like a lot of others, like had their life pretty much like upended through that experience, and had really nothing to do. I was in the middle of a construction project to get a restaurant open, and then all of a sudden, the pandemic happened, and I was left with really nothing to do. And my friend called me, and he's like a delivery driver for he's like a distribution driver. He delivers food products to various restaurants.
Got it. So like big rig driver.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And he wanted to trade me, like he had this like 20-pound package of ground beef that he like called me to trade some weed for. I'm not like a weed dealer or anything.
Yeah.
But he like was like, hey man, I got this beef. If you've got some weed you want to trade. And I was like, okay, sure. And so I took 20 pounds of beef and gave him like a bowl of weed or something,
right.
And so then I was like, what do I do with all of this beef? Like I live alone, I don't need that much beef. That's a lot.
Can't even freeze and use that much beef.
Yeah, I couldn't fit it in my freezer.
Right.
The night before, I'd been hanging out with like another industry friend and veteran of mine, Tika, and we were kind of just talking about like we wish we could do something, like we wish we just had something to do.
Right.
And then I just kind of like had this idea, like, man, it'd be really cool to just like cook burgers for the neighborhood. Like everyone's stuck in their homes and people are kind of hurting for cash. And we both live in Garfield, in downtown Phoenix. And so I called him. I was like, dude, if I can put this together, would you want to help me, just slang free burgers for the neighborhood?
Manage it, have him do the managing part of it?
Well, no, just like, we would just like cook burgers together. Like I had like a little flat top grill, like portable flat top grill.
Oh, that you could pull out and set up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And he was like, yeah, fuck it. Like, I got nothing else to do. And
Yeah.
so I ended up calling, some other food friend, purveyors of mine, like Noble Bread, and he was down to donate buns, and
Their
Mrs.
food
Klein.
their bread and food is so good.
Yeah. Jason's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
We kind of like came up together sort of in the food world. Like we started kind of around the same time and supported each other for a long time.
Right.
So he was down to give me 100 buns, and the Mrs. Klein's pickle family, who's, long friends of mine too. Like they donated a bunch of pickles, and all of a sudden we had all this food. So we set up shop at Gallo Blanco. The chef there is a friend of mine too. He said we could use the parking lot, and we just decided like we would cook free burgers for everyone. We announced it online, and the response was super huge. And I was talking to Tika about it even further. I'm like, what if we could turn this into like a fundraiser? Like it would be cool if we could accept donations. So we already got all this free food, and we could use those donations to support the Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence.
Okay. Why did you choose that one specifically?
Because domestic violence is a major issue in the pandemic, and I wanted to be able to have some sort of like real-time impact, and I think it's kind of been like a hidden crisis in itself. Like domestic violence like raised like 20%, the calls for domestic violence around the country raised like 20%
since people were given the stay-at-home order.
Yeah, trapped at home with abusive partners and
right.
et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And I think a lot of fundraising was done for the coronavirus research. Like Lady Gaga raised like $200 million or something
right.
crazy, and so I felt like that area was already pretty well covered. And if we could raise money for the coalition in our neighborhood and our community, that had like a real-time impact, like immediately, because the coalition runs the crisis hotline for domestic violence.
Okay.
So they're basically the call before cops,
right.
Like
they're firsthand.
Yeah.
Right.
So all the money that's that they're getting donated right now goes directly towards increasing their capacity for the hotline calls.
Okay.
So that was pretty much the main inspiration, and I have friends that work for them too. Like I kind of reach out to some people. I'm like, hey, I want to donate towards a domestic violence cause, and everyone kind of pointed me towards that organization, and we just kind of went with it.
Right. And so I went to yesterday's event as well as the event the day before, so Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
And you guys did tacos and you did pizza.
Yeah.
And is that just you guys finding other restaurants to collaborate with, or?
Yeah. So, I didn't want to go around asking my restaurant friends for like money and favors right now.
Right.
It's like,
right.
We're all kind of struggling and trying to figure out how to navigate this situation.
Right.
But I've had a lot of people reach out to me like, hey, I want to contribute. Like whatever you're doing is really cool. Like, how can I help? And both Taco Boys, Cisco from Taco Boys, who's a friend of mine.
And their food was so good. If I say so myself, those tacos were delicious.
Yeah. Was that the first time
That was the first time I ever had them. Actually, I have a friend of mine is the media guy for them. He's doing all of their content creation and whatnot.
Oh, cool.
Marco. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're a great family. And I've been going there since their first week, and just was like an immediate supporter. That space that they're in was kind of like this weird cursed building. Like stuff was always in and out of there, and it was always kind of like half-assed. And
right.
When I went there the first time, I was kind of just expecting that again. I was just curious though. I was just immediately blown away, and Cisco and I kind of hit it off immediately. Anyway, so he hit me up. He was like, dude, I want to like participate. Like, what can we do? I'm like, well, why don't you guys just donate the food? We'll just do tacos. Like, Hood Burger just is like the umbrella name for like wanting to give food out and raise donations, so we could format it however we want. So he was like super cool with that, and they took over the food truck. It was like really awesome. And same thing with Audie from Ziggy's and Cobra. He let us. We're kind of like originally stationed in the Cobra parking lot, and got a food truck. The use of a food truck donated to us from Genuine Concepts.
Okay.
And Audie's been to a couple events, and he was just like, dude, whatever you're doing is really cool. I want to contribute too. Like, what can we do? And they're getting ready to open up Ziggy's next week. They're opening on Monday. And I was just like, dude, let's just throw in an event real quick at Ziggy's and just get away pizza before you guys open. And he was 100% game, and it was really awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. This week we gave away, I think, about close to 400 meals.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, all the food was really good. So it wasn't like half-assed food or stuff that you guys were just like leftover, tossed out. It was all really, really delicious food. At least what I had had. I wish I had gotten an opportunity to have some of those burgers, but I heard from other friends that they were really good too. So you're doing something right on the food side, apparently.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I'm a chef, so it would be weird to like be serving gross food to people.
Right.
I wouldn't want to do that.
Right. Right. And then, so Tika, I spoke with him a little bit yesterday at the event. It seemed like you guys were, from his perspective, it was kind of trying to get people to get back into a community type of orientation, trying to make people feel more organized, more community oriented, I guess, to say, in this time, but adapting it to what's going on with this time period. Was that a goal of your guys, or did that just kind of happen?
Yeah. I mean, I think like, initially we wanted to, I think the Hood Burger thing, like, it serves a lot of purposes, right? It's like, it's giving back to people that need it. It's raising money for a cool cause. And it's just like getting people together. Again, we've all, like our community in downtown is like really tight. Like we're used to seeing each other every day. We go to the same freaking coffee shop. We go to the same restaurants, and we're always, it's this really awesome, like incestual like culture where we're always just hanging out. And suddenly that was just gone, Yeah. And I think like a lot of the feedback we got, and like why we always tell anyone to come, whether you have money or not, like just come and participate, is that feeling of community. And I think some of the biggest feedback we got was like, dude, this was the coolest thing I've done all month. Yeah. And all they did was stand in line and get a free cheeseburger. Yeah. But they got to see their friends that, like from 6 feet away and with a mask on that they hadn't seen in a month. Or they've only been like talking to on Zoom or whatever.
Right. So that was going to be my next question is, have you had any backlash or any issues as far as like congregating goes, considering this whole situation?
Well, we don't encourage gathering. We don't, it's not like an event where people like come necessarily and just like eat and hang out.
Right.
They stand in line and they get their food, and we do our best to, we want to keep everyone safe. So we require masks for everyone.
Right.
We buy masks in case people don't have them. And I got a lot of, I don't know if it was like backlash, but I got a lot of like really good feedback from community members that like are really involved with coronavirus, and they gave me like really good suggestions on how to keep everyone safe. And and I think for the most part, I think like 99% of the people like are just down to do what it takes to keep the event safe.
Right. And restaurants are supposed to be able to open tomorrow, right? Are you planning on, what is your plan moving forward as far as the food business goes?
Like for me personally?
Yeah, for you personally, or what have you heard from the community in the food business?
Well, it's just a fucking free for all right now, which is scary. Like I'm in this like really kind of unique position. Like I'm almost, I don't want to say blessed, but I have like a restaurant under construction. Like I don't have to open right now.
Right.
Like, I'm just kind of like chilling and watching.
You can let it take time if you need to.
Yeah. But, a lot of my friends in the business, they're, some of them are planning to open Monday, and some of them are waiting to kind of like feel it out. And I think we've been given like, it's just the Wild West. There's no format. There's no accountability system. There's like really nothing. It's just like open if you can. And
yeah.
Like,
did they give any capacity guidelines or anything like that?
I mean, as far as I can tell, it's just like suggestions from the government.
Interesting. Okay. So it really is a Wild West situation. You can't do much about it.
Yeah. Like I know in Tucson, I'm connected because I had a restaurant in Tucson for a while and connected with a lot of people down there. Like I know that there's no actual guidelines. They're just like,
isn't it supposed to be statewide though? Or is the cities are mandating these kinds of things for the restaurants?
I don't know. The politics like
are beyond you.
Yeah. But I just know that, my friends down there are just like, yeah, there's just suggestions of what we should do, but there's nothing saying we have to do things this way.
It's like when they say unprecedented times, like we really are in unprecedented times. There
Oh,
is no precedent that we can fall back on to understand what our next move is.
Yeah, it's just totally, it changes every day.
Yeah.
Like our reality changes every day. I'm glad that I don't have to open a restaurant on Monday. I don't want to be one of those people. Like, I think I understand where a lot of people are coming from, a lot of businesses, because there's no social net to protect anyone. So a lot of people are facing like the reality of if they don't open soon, they're going to lose their life's work.
I've heard a couple people say, these aren't people that are in the food industry at all, so I don't know how, valid this might be, but saying that a lot of restaurants might be making even more money right now, considering they're only doing takeout and they don't have the cost of paying employees as much and things of that nature. Does that sound like something that's true?
I think if you're like a pizza place, then you're probably doing all right. But if you're a full service restaurant with like a beverage program and a cocktail program, and you're depending on those kind of sales, like I think you're probably like really struggling.
Right.
Takeout, helps, but it's for a lot of restaurant formats, you're really depending on people wining and dining and buying that bottle of wine and,
sitting and having that experience with you.
Yeah, that's where a lot of people's rent comes from.
Right. Especially servers and stuff like that. That's a real painstaking point, especially with the capacity rules that seems like they're going to start setting on restaurants. I feel like even servers aren't even going to have their jobs coming back to them, it'll be interesting to see how different businesses navigate. Buffalo Wild Wings, it seems like in Atlanta, is trying out a new Buffalo Wild Wings Go concept. So it's a smaller space, and they're almost doing like ATL Wings style. Like takeout. Majority of their orders would be takeout in just a few small seating areas.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see how the food business adapts to this in the long term, not just over the next month or so as things start opening up, but like really long term.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely, it's the restaurant industry was facing a sustainability issue.
How so? Like prior to this?
Yeah, I think with like, prior to this, the restaurant industry was not existing in a sustainable manner.
Okay.
Like I think a lot of restaurants were, even probably ones that we all know, were probably struggling to make the bottom line work.
Right.
With labor laws changing and minimum wage increasing, which I think are good things. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm not against those things, but all of the labor laws and the minimum wage laws don't factor in how, the restaurant industry's financial models work. So I think we were facing this issue of like, how is this business going? How is this industry going to continue to like thrive and flourish and make money for people? Most of us restaurateurs and chefs, like we are like blue collar people. We are not rolling in money. We have to live within a budget, and this issue, this pandemic is just, it's just exacerbating that problem even more.
And you've been in the restaurant industry for quite some time now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did you get into it?
I started a food truck in 2011 when I was 26 called Old Dixie's, with my former partner, Jen. And we had this like kind of Southern, like chicken and biscuits concept. And we sold food at farmers markets and whatnot. And that turned into Welcome Diner over time. I developed a relationship with the original founder of Welcome Diner, Sloan, and then we struck a deal to open up the diner at 10th Street in Roosevelt in 2012. So
okay.
Opened that up in February 2012, and that turned into a second concept called Chicken and Donuts on 16th Street in Buckeye that I opened a year and a half later. And then we opened up Welcome Diner Tucson in October 2016, I think.
Okay.
I can't remember.
Did you have an interest in food before you got into the food industry?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was like in high school. I'm 34. In high school, I was like glued to Food Network when it
Right.
wasn't like a very cool thing to be watching.
Right.
You know, like it was kind of dorky, and like I loved, I was watching like the imported Iron Chef that was like all in Japanese. And
I have a sister that's 9 years older than me, and yeah, she used to watch that show all the time. So
Yeah.
I, by way of association, obviously was watching it too. So
yeah, like food and music has kind of just been like my life, like
Okay.
as ever since I can remember. I mean, I was my first job, I was 16, and I worked at just a shitty diner in Glendale.
right,
And that kind of like got me hooked immediately. Like I remember getting my like ass handed to me, as they say, like my first Friday night there.
yeah,
And the lead cook like walked out. There was
Oh,
only ever
man.
2 cooks, right?
Right.
So I was the 16-year-old that was just cooking French fries, and all of a sudden there's 30 orders, and it was just me. I had to figure out how to like cook all these hamburgers, and I never even worked on a flat top before.
Right.
And it just was like wrecked, and it was chaos. And
you like talk about a crash course.
yeah, and then like I made it through, and eventually another manager showed up a couple hours later. But like that chaos and frenetic energy was like addicting. My life growing up was already chaotic, so I think I I just sort of thrived in that environment.
Right.
And then that kind of like struck the bug, and just like being into restaurants and restaurant culture. And I started like cooking at home a bunch. Like I would make like lasagna from scratch. Like I would make my mom buy me a bottle of wine so I could make the bolognese. I'd make my own bechamel, I'd roll out the pasta, I'd make a freaking mess of the whole kitchen.
And that was just for fun.
Yeah, that was just
to
because
get interested in it.
I wanted to like go through that process of taking like a bunch of random raw products and like turning it into
Right.
something complete.
What about music? You've noted music was something you're interested in too.
Yeah, so I've like produced music for a lot of years. I have a project that's called Slowly, without an O.
Okay.
We're on Spotify and stuff, but I've got a music studio at home that I share with like my music partner. And yeah, it's a big part of my life.
What kind of music is it? What genre do you fall under?
We like make, we kind of just like to make like sexy kind of like bedroom R&B tunes.
Okay. Okay, vocals involved, or
Yeah.
is it strictly instrumental? It's vocal too? Okay.
Mhm.
And you guys record the vocals or have other people come in and do that?
Yeah, so I do all the vocals.
Okay.
And then my Gabe, he plays all the like string stuff, like guitar and bass. He's like one of the best bass players ever.
Okay.
And then I handle all the songwriting and keyboard work and vocals.
Okay.
And like drum beats and stuff like that.
Is it through the music or through the food that you know my friend Mo and Gabby?
Oh yeah, I know. Well, so Mo I know through like a friend of a friend that I had dated, and then I know Gabby through Mo.
Okay,
when they started dating,
right?
And yeah,
I figured it was possibly since Gabby she worked at Trotto. I figured maybe that was the direction that you guys became associated.
Yeah,
you mentioned music, and I was like, oh, okay. So. That's a small world right there.
It is, definitely. How do you guys know each other?
I used to work with a EDM events company out here,
okay.
smaller one. And Mo was a part of that for a certain period of time. And his roommate, Steven, is managed by the guy that ran that company.
Oh.
So it's all like a couple different directions. And me and Mo just happened to stay friends throughout that process. So it's probably been 3 years now I've known him and hang out with him. I help him with his live streams and all that different kind of stuff. So just good collaboration. It's nice to have people that have an open mind to creativity and you can kind of bounce ideas off of and stay connected with in that respect too. So
yeah, for sure.
I'm sure that's something that's common in the food industry too, is definitely staying connected with like-minded people.
Oh yeah, dude, especially in Phoenix. Phoenix is very like it's a really tight-knit food community. We all support each other.
Have you ever seen those articles that try to talk about like the best and worst food cities in the country?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that I feel like Phoenix is always like null and void? It's not in the best and it's not in the worst.
Yeah, I think we were like pretty much on the cusp of becoming like I think we're already a food city.
I would agree.
I've had some of the best meals of my life here, and I've eaten all over the world.
Right.
And I think we've got some of the most talented people, but I think it just takes time to catch on. Like I know Eater just started a branch, Eater, the online
Right.
food magazine.
Right. They have a big Instagram channel and everything too.
Yeah. I know they just started like a Phoenix kind of branch of Eater. So I think that's a pretty big step in legitimizing us. And last year, Charlene Batman from F&B, she won a James Beard, which I think is the first time in 7 or 8 years someone from Arizona won a James Beard. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Who else do I know that has? I have a friend whose aunt won a James Beard award. I think she's from like Ohio or something like that, though. That was my first. Like the first time I'd ever heard the term James Beard. I never knew what a James Beard award was.
Yeah, it's essentially kind of like the Oscars of
or like I've heard like the Pulitzer of the Pulitzer Prize of the food industry.
Yeah.
How do they assess who gets that?
I'm not even really sure, but it's a foundation based out of New York. It's James Beard was a culinary education teacher, and I think like the early 1900s, or I can't remember the exact time frame, but
right.
I'm sure they have like some sort of team that kind of assesses different cities and
does like a scouting run or something.
Yeah, and they do like, I don't know, James Beard does these different events where they like bring chefs to the foundation,
right,
from different cities. I know Phoenix has had like several of those where my friends have like flown out to New York and they've done like a James Beard dinner to kind of like highlight themselves and stuff like that.
Right. Okay. So your restaurant that you're building out, what is the concept?
So it's called Belly, and it's going to be a Southeast Asian bar and restaurant.
Southeast Asian. Okay.
Yeah. So we have a pretty strong focus on Vietnamese food.
Okay.
We took a research trip together to Vietnam and Japan this last summer for about a month to kind of gain just to gain insight on the culture and the food.
Right. There. I'm sure you had a set date to open prior to all of this happening, but
we had like
playing by the ear at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we had a time frame. The thing with like a new building is your target changes a lot depending.
Oh, this is a completely new building?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Okay. I thought you were just taking over another lease in a building and then building out the restaurant that way. That process is pretty quick, it seems like, when you're just taking under a building that's already there. Yeah,
they call that turnkey. Okay. Yeah, this was this is an old kind of historic building, so it was a long process. Like I got, this restaurant technically was quite a few years in the making, even before I came on with the developers.
Okay.
So, but yeah, we were planning on opening in May. That was kind of the goal. Originally, we were even shooting for March, so I'm glad that didn't happen.
Yeah, things kind of turned up really quickly too. It was like end of February. No one really had any doubts about like anything going on here, and then as things progressed, those next couple weeks afterwards were really, really intense as far as like things coming on and new regulations and all of that happening. So
yeah, I kind of like remember it was like there was the first weekend of March was McDowell Mountain Music Festival.
Yep.
And my group actually Slowly Played on a Friday, and they like announced the day that we were playing that South by Southwest got canceled. And I had kind of been tracking the coronavirus thing through a YouTube channel called Peak Prosperity.
Okay.
Since like, I think like late January. He's like a virologist, and was just like, he was kind of sounding all the alarm bells. And so I was kind of following it for a while. But I do remember that like that festival happened, and then just like, that was the last weekend of the world is what it felt like. As soon as that festival was done, it was just like everything changed.
When people went crazy and started raiding all of the stores, not raiding, but you know what I mean. They were going in buying copious amounts of toilet paper for some reason.
Why did everyone start shitting so much all of a sudden?
Dude, my dad asked the same question. He was like, people are buying like 3 years worth of toilet paper. It doesn't make any sense. Like, what are you going to use it for besides going to the bathroom? There's really no purpose there. So that was an interesting blip of time, I guess. That 1-2 week blip of time was really, really awkward.
Super weird. Yeah, I know in the UK they had a tea shortage. So,
a tea shortage.
Yeah, so everyone was buying up tea, which really is kind of like speaks to the dichotomy between the UK and
The US. Yeah. Yeah, in really bizarre way, to say the least. I wonder what food product. I believe it was ground beef. I'm pretty sure ground beef was the one food item in grocery stores that went the quickest.
Really?
Yeah. I'm
I
at least
have
from
no
my
idea.
personal experience, like walking into grocery stores, I saw like ground beef, the whole frozen meat aisle or the cold meats aisle was just kind of gone.
Yeah, I remember going to the store and just aisles of stuff being gone, like canned goods and
A lot of grains like lentils and rice and all that stuff.
yeah. I kind of did my doomsday shopping like right before it got crazy, so
Yeah.
I didn't experience a lot of that. I did struggle to find toilet paper one week. That was the weirdest kind of anxiety. Like, I don't know if I'm
Like,
going to be able to wipe my ass.
Yeah, what do I have to do now? What is my next step? Do I go with the socks? Like, what am I about to do?
Or I'm just like, when I was home all the time, so it's like I just shit and then I shower.
The shit and shower.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's got to be the go-to for people anyhow, in my opinion. The shit and shower is a great option.
Yeah, I mean, it feels great.
Yeah, I agree. So what other things are you looking forward to doing in the future as far as your music goes? Is that something that you're pursuing, like, realistically to go big on, or is that just kind of a side project that you enjoy making music with?
I mean, I would love to. It would be awesome. We've been we just put out an EP in March, and we're working on a bunch of other stuff. We kind of like got the wind knocked out of our sails a bit, which I think happened to a lot of creative people where, the pandemic first happened, and I think a lot of us creatives were like, "Oh, this is cool." Like, I'm kind of like a homebody introvert anyway.
Anyhow, yeah.
Like staying home that's something I do anyway.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way.
But like when you force someone to do that, and then there's no other, like there's nothing that you're being stimulated by,
Right.
That really changes everything, right?
Right.
So we like had this really productive like first 2 weeks, Gabe and I. And Gabe's a musician professionally. Like all he does is gig.
Okay.
Like he does like the casinos and he plays all the country bars every weekend.
Just playing string instruments?
Yeah, he's playing bass in bands. So both of our lives just got totally upended, and we went from like being really kind of like prolific in what we were doing to like just like running out of steam. And
yeah,
we didn't really do anything for like a month, but we've just started getting back into the studio and finishing up some old tunes and projects that we're gonna release soon. So.
Yeah. I've heard some of the event companies that are looking to open back up as things start to ease, as all of the regulations start to ease, are saying they're like 80% down on their occupancy. It's like 80% cut on occupancy for events like that almost makes you think, like, are people even going to want to go to these events? Because a big part of it is the community aspect. You know what I mean? Being around people in large groups and seeing musicians that a bunch of other people also enjoy listening to is a huge part of going to events in the first place.
Yeah, I think the music industry is probably gonna be hit the hardest by all of this,
right?
Or just entertainment in general. I mean, I think like a lot of like I'm friends with a few promoters in town, and I know a lot of them are not even really thinking about booking stuff till next year. So
have you heard anything about like the club industry as far as what they might be facing when they come back?
I don't. I imagine the same difficulty as everyone else. Like, I don't understand how it's going to work.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense how you can operate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Given all of this going on, it doesn't make sense how a club especially could operate.
Yeah, I think like going back to your conversation about like creative, restaurant tours, like figuring out how to navigate all this stuff. I know there's some creative musicians like that. Mark, I always forget how to say his last name, but Mark Ribier or Riblet or something like that. He's a YouTube guy, but he announced a drive-in movie theater tour.
See, a lot of I can appreciate the creativity that's going to come from people trying to figure out how to keep things going or try to keep their work going.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird, the idea of like partying in your car, but I think like people are gonna just be down to have something to do that isn't staying at home. So
yeah, my girlfriend was saying this the other day. She was like, it's not that I want to go out. It's like most of the time if I have the option to go out, I'm gonna say no anyways, but it's having the option to say no that's bothering me.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like everyone just kind of wants a little bit more freedom in what they can do, and realistically speaking, it didn't seem like Arizona took much of this shelter at home stuff too seriously in the first place.
Hell no. All they did was just shut down the bars and restaurants. You know, they just kind
Yeah.
of like screwed our industry over, and then
Yeah.
like everything else is. And we're the worst in testing, right? And most of medical professionals say like the best way to get out of this is, you know, testing and contact tracing, and we're not doing any of that. So,
Yeah. They're saying that antibody testing is supposed to be the next big thing to help us get past all of this, but it doesn't seem like that's something that they're really doing either. So,
no.
yeah, they're just kind of blindly opening things up. They opened barbershops up, on Friday?
Yeah.
And there was not a single barbershop in town that had an opening. Not a single one. That I called probably 4 different barbershops to try to get a time to like go in and at least get my head shaved up or my beard lined up or something.
Yeah.
And nothing. All just booked like crazy.
Crazy. Yeah, I'm just going with the Johnny Cash like slick back look.
It works on you. That's what I'm saying. It definitely works. I'm sure it helps with like when you're cooking and stuff too, keeping the hair out of the way.
Yeah, it is unmanageably long, but I haven't like broke down enough to shave it fully yet.
Yeah.
I might though.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I was kind of on the short end of my hair in the first place, and then all this hit, and I was like, you know what? Let's just buy some clippers and call it a day. So have my girlfriend shave my head makes it a lot easier. I don't have to spend the money on it. Call it a day. So makes things easy. Is there anything else that you want to share with us? Anything else about Hood Burger, when your next event is? So this podcast will probably go up in another 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we are, we exist very much like in the present. So we decided we're going to take the next week or 2 off.
Okay, perfect.
So I would just encourage everyone just to go to the Hood Burger Project Instagram. That's where we communicate most of our stuff. And
awesome.
we are going to have more events, projects coming up. So just click on that page and you can get updated through there.
Yeah, just like everything else, I'm excited to see how that project adapts as we learn more about what's going to go on with society in general. Because again, that's all up in the air at the moment. Yeah. I don't think anyone has any idea. I was planning on launching my clothing and apparel sometime in March, and I kind of came to a point where I was like, people don't have money for food. People don't really have money for like anything at the moment. It wouldn't be smart of me to try to start advertising clothing at people, like something that's not a necessity. So
I don't know, man. You'd be surprised. I have a friend that's got like a vintage like clothing retail store, and she's doing great.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, there's still people out there with money, and they got nothing to do, so they're buying shit to make them feel good.
I guess that's an interesting way to think about it. Yeah. I don't know. Everyone I've talked to, I probably had 3 or 4 guests on the podcast since this whole pandemic started, and every conversation goes the same way. It's like you can't really make you can't make sense of anything that's going on.
Nothing makes sense.
Nothing. Yeah. None of it. So either way, Michael, I appreciate you hopping on here. I appreciate you coming by and spending some time talking to us about your projects and everything you have going on.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's any time in the future you want to hop back on, we'll do an update podcast. I'd love to have you back.
Cool. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys for tuning into this episode. We will catch you guys in the next one, and talk to you soon.